online, and it's an iconic picture with you and Tupac during his rape trial, I believe, after he first got shot. Can you talk to me about bodyguarding Tupac?
Yes. When Tupac got shot, and it was all on the news, his attorney, Michael Warren, Tariq, and Sister Afeni reached out to one of our security firms. It was called X-Men Security at that time. And we dispatched about 12 soldiers, 12 brothers, to the hospital. And I was actually on Tupac's door. So I guarded the door, and my instructions was not to let anyone in except for a doctor and a nurse. And I met the doctor and the nurse, and I had to observe them as they were caring for Tupac. As you know, he was shot multiple times, so I was able to see them clean the bandage dressing in his head, in the other areas, the scrotum sac, and just the other areas where he was shot. And when they would leave, I guarded the door. And probably that same night, because he had court in the morning, or it might have been the day after, we moved him out like 3 in the morning. There was a gang load of camera people, paparazzi, that were in the lobby of the hospital waiting for movement. So we moved him out in a service elevator, and we took him somewhere in Harlem. He was married to a young lady by the name of Keisha at that time. And so we took him to that house, and where he was heavily sedated. And then in the first thing in the morning, we had to go down to Lower Manhattan to court. And that's probably the video footage that you see of Tupac. He was very humble. He was in pain. I remember he wanted to smoke a cigarette. He said, "Brother, I don't mean no disrespect." And I said, "Bet, do you? You know, do you?" A lot of paparazzi people wanted to take pictures, so it was an honor to hold that brother down, you know, during that time in his life.
Was there any? Did you guys know who you were protecting him from?
No.
Did he know who you were protecting him from?
No, no. You know, the speculation began to surface days, weeks after the street started talking, people started investigating. In fact, you know, I believe in my heart that Biggie had nothing to do with it, because in fact, he was one of the people that came to visit him at the home in Harlem. And we had to knock on the door and ask Sister Afeni, could he come in to see Tupac, and she permitted him to come in. So he had to walk through all of these FOI guarding the door, and you know, he looked like he was sad that his brother, this is me speaking, as if he was saddened that his brother was shot. And I didn't have access to the room where they were speaking, but as it was told to me later by one of the brothers that was in, Tupac was heavily sedated, so they didn't have really a tangible conversation. But Sister Afeni permitted him to come in, and then he left. And so when I started hearing the rumors after, and of course no one knows, but in my gut, you know, I saw a brother that really wanted to check on the welfare of his brother, not someone that just schemed and connived to get his brother shot. So
in order for him to know where the house was in Harlem, he must have trusted him still at that point.
Well, I don't know if he invited him to the house, and I don't know how Tupac knew. Maybe he was there at a time before. I don't even know how he knew, because we did this like in the wee hours of the morning. So, you know, again, it was a surprise to see him there. I knew him, again, from my days in hip-hop. We had shared the stage together prior. So, you know, it was a familiar face that he saw. So I was able to bring him to the door where he was staying, because we did security in the hallway. We stayed up all night doing security in the hallway, just in case there was any repercussion if anyone knew where he was.
Wow, so it was a secret address no one really knew except people close to Pac.
That's correct.
Wow. Did you, so what happened after he left the address, the house in Harlem?
We took him to court. and after the court proceedings, I don't remember where we secured him back to, but our part of that detail was over with. He didn't go back to the hospital, so he may have went back to the house, but our part of the detail was over at that time.
Did you get to talk to him at all about the situation?
No, not at all. You know, when you're doing security for a principal, your job is to protect their life, to ensure their safety. It's not to have conversations with them.
Did you have any conversation with Alfini about what happened, Mrs. Shakur?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So when you took him downstairs at 3 in the morning, were you guys shocked to see all the paparazzi there?
Well, there was no paparazzi outside in Harlem because they didn't know. No. We saw the paparazzi as we were called to go to the hospital. So as we're entering the hospital, we were told what floor. There was obviously no paparazzi on the floor where he was being cared for, but they were all downstairs in the lobby area. You see all the cameras, all the Caucasians, you know. And so they didn't know what we were there for. You know, they didn't know we were security. We just had on suits and ties, and, you know, so they didn't know what we were doing. But I saw the flux of press that were down at the bottom. So obviously from the ambulance, they knew what hospital he was at. And so that's that.
The other people that were involved in that incident, were they at the hospital with him? The 2 other guys that got robbed as well?
I'm not sure. Again, he was our principal, and that's who we dealt with. We weren't there for the other brothers. He was the principal person that we were assigned to protect.
What did you think when you heard the news of him passing away from the incident in Vegas?
I was very saddened. As legendary as Tupac is, I don't think that we got to see the best of him. I would have loved to see a post East Coast, West Coast Tupac. His words and his image today is even iconic, where out of all of the things that I've done in hip hop today in 2019, what young people marvel at more than looking at my videos is seeing me guarding Tupac. Tupac is like the Elvis of the hip hop generation. You know, there's this rumor Tupac is still alive, you know, amongst young people in a very iconic way. So there was something very special about him. Even if you listen to his interviews, I would have loved to see what a mature Tupac would have meant to organizing black people to have greater social, political, and black national consciousness, because he was already seeded with that energy from his mom and his uncles being Black Panthers, the Islamic side of influence in his family. And remember, he was a young man, and he expressed a lot of immaturity within his conscience, but a mature Tupac would have been able to guide even younger people in hip hop today.
If he was still alive, do you think hip hop would still be gangster or more conscious, or do you think it would be where it is now?
You know, I think hip hop has evolved. Some of the brothers who are my age, who were there in the beginning, don't like what it has evolved to. But I think that hip hop is a natural expression of the people via generations. And this is the way this generation expresses its hip hop. So when I listen to the early rap records, it's hard for me to listen to, because the beats are not as developed as they were in the 90s when I thought hip hop was at its heyday. So I think it's unfair to judge each generation's contribution to hip hop. What we did when we did it was dope, and it still has a niche following. But right now what's happening, and I'm a DJ, you know, there are certain old school records that I cannot play for young people. There are certain ones that I can play. So to answer your question, I don't think Tupac would have influenced the natural progression of hip hop in terms of steering it one way or another. I just think that his voice and his message would have helped to define a culture. So when you listen to a song like Brenda's Having a Baby, or you listen to Dear Mama, yo, these songs are classic songs that would never go out. And when you hear it, when he says, you know, mama, you was a black queen, mama, you know, from a crack fiend. I forgot how the lyric goes, but when you hear it, it's a tearjerker because he put his heart and his soul into his lyrics. Even in his gangster lyrics, he put his heart and his soul too. So that passion would have just made him memorable. He has a large body of work in a short period of time of his life. But imagine if he had an opportunity to grow and see his children and marriage and just go through struggle and conflict and even more pain. You know, we would have had a different person coming out. And I don't think that there has been another artist that has had that cultural impact on us, and probably the closest one, and some people are not going to like this, is probably Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne as an artist in his genre defined the generation of rap when rap was turning the corner, and he literally had icon status as well, just in a different way.
So would you say Lil Wayne is the Tupac of his era?
To a degree. I don't think that Lil Wayne has stood for his people to the same degree, but from an iconic way, he had a run. Not the Lil Wayne today, but the Lil Wayne that was the headliner of Young Money. Mm-hmm. He defined a generation, and he had a long stretch where he was really on top. And for instance, I'll give you an example. Black folks from the hood was not into no skateboarding until Lil Wayne and wearing Vans and wearing Skippies. He made that fashionable. That's somebody who changed the direction of how people viewed culture, and because he was such a great rapper, that was hip hop. So now skateboarding is part of hip hop because he defined that. That's what I mean. So I'm not comparing their rap styles, I'm just comparing their cultural attraction.